you can't keep stacking silver in the SLV ETF without something breaking and snapping. And that is exactly what is going to happen eventually. Will it happen in 2022? We know it almost did happen right here. This is the peak of silver squeeze. Well, hello there, my friends. Rafi here from the Endgame Investor, coming at you with this week's silver report for Arcadia Economics. And today we're going to do the 2022 report. What is going to happen to silver in 2022? If I knew the exact answer to that question, I would be a multi-billionaire. We can start by what happened to silver in December 2021, and despite the boring price action relatively, I can tell you that December 2021 was the biggest physical silver drain from registered Comex stocks of silver since 1997, back when Warren Buffett started accumulating his own physical silver position. I'll show you exactly how much was drained and how much we have left, and considering that, what could happen this year, and it involves SLV, and I will show you this in very specific numbers. Let's go to the charts. This boring little thing here shows you the biggest monthly silver drain from Comex registered stocks since 1997, but you didn't know that was happening. Oh, but it is. Here, you see my two little artistic circles. They used to call me Picasso. I'm a what do you call it, a cubist? Or a postmodernist? I don't know. What do the woke people call it? So you have here these red lines that shows silver outflows from the registered pile. This is registered, this is eligible. Registered means available for delivery against warrants. Eligible means not. It's just being stored. And you see here that this only started being counted in 2001. So we have a line down here which represents about 17 million ounces of silver registered off of the books. The last time we had a draw that large was back here in 1997. This is just an accounting arm when eligible stocks started being accounted for, so this doesn't count. Back 1997, this is when Warren Buffett starts draining silver for himself. Now, if we look back at what happened in 2021, we can see what happened to registered silver stocks on the Comex since silver squeeze began in February 2021. We see here that we had a high of about 152 million ounces in the registered category, and now we are down to about 82 million ounces, slightly less. I think this chart is a few days old, but it hasn't changed much since, at 70 million ounces out the door of the futures market since February. That is a huge number. That number is significant for another reason. We are at 82 million ounces. We like to talk about silver squeeze a lot, but what gets lost in the mix is what happened in July 2020, just before silver hit its high of $30. Back then, there was about, from this red line you see here, about 85 million ounces in the registered category. That means available for delivery against warrants. But you might also remember that July 2020 was the biggest month for silver warrant deliveries ever, at 17,294 contracts, which is the notional equivalent of about 86.5 million ounces of silver. Yeah, and there only was about 85 million ounces. So just before delivery day, first notice delivery day in July 2020, there wasn't enough physical silver in the registered category to cover all of those contracts. So what happened? There was a sudden surge of about 40 million ounces right here. And where did they come from? They came from JPMorgan's eligible silver stockpile. There is something to know about JPMorgan Chase's eligible silver pile. 160 million ounces of silver in the eligible category and 24.58 million in the registered category. What does that mean that they have 160 million ounces of silver in the eligible category, meaning just storage, not for delivery against futures? What is this stuff? Who does it belong to? What is it for? I will show you right here what this 160 million ounces is. And you can see here, this was July 2020 when JPMorgan shuttled about 40 million ounces of silver from eligible, this lighter color here, to registered, and suddenly you have a big jump in the registered category at the expense of eligible in July 2020. That was the emergency that we're talking about. So what is that 160 million ounces? Here it is. This is the bullion list for the SLV ETF. You can see here, JPMorgan Vault, New York, has 102,837 1,000 ounce bars, give or take 100 ounces each, as of January 4th, 2022, totaling 103,176,253 ounces. So out of the 160 million ounces, 103 of them in the eligible category belong to SLV, which means they cannot be used for delivery against futures contracts because they are already owned by the ETF. Now, here's the thing about SLV and what could happen in 2022. First of all, we know that the 40 million ounces that JPMorgan moved in July of 2020 are now off of the registered category. Again, we do not know who owns them. We don't know the parties, but it could be that those 40 million ounces are now privately owned by many different actors, and they might be off limits. If that's true, then the 103 million is off limits for SLV, and another 40 million might be off limits or something close to it. So JPMorgan does not have a lot of eligible silver left. What if there is another silver emergency like there was in July 2020 when there wasn't enough silver to cover the contracts until JPMorgan came in and saved the situation? Well, there's one more chart I want to show you. Here we get to what is going on in the SLV ETF. And there's something very basic that you should notice about this chart. The blue line is the silver price. The black line is the amount of silver in the SLV ETF. You'll see here that from the founding of the SLV ETF in May 2006 until 2011, silver rose from, it looks around $14 to around $50 at the 2011 high. And during that time, silver, physical silver in the SLV ETF also rose from, it looks like 600 tons to 11,000 tons, which makes sense. The higher the silver price goes, the more silver there should be in the SLV ETF to keep it in line with the futures price. However, from 2011 until 2020, silver was cut from about 50 to about $10.50 or whatever the low was in March 2020. And during that whole time, this black line does not really go anywhere on net. It's the same amount of silver, more or less, give or take, from 2011 until 2020. And then something big happens. There is a huge demand for silver SLV shares in 2020 through 2021 and now. And we are still at near record highs for silver stored in SLV, which means that the public interest and exposure to the silver price is much higher than it was at any time since SLV's founding. The reason that silver, physical silver stored in SLV did not go down from 2011 to 2020, even though the price of silver did, was that the public interest in owning an exposure to silver kept rising even as the silver price fell. So when you have a chart like this that only goes in one direction, meaning the amount of silver in SLV only rises over the long term, and even when the price of silver falls, physical silver in SLV doesn't seem to fall that much, you can't keep stacking silver in the SLV ETF without something breaking and snapping, and that is exactly what is going to happen eventually. Will it happen in 2022? We know it almost did happen right here. This is the peak of silver squeeze, when there was a huge shuttling of physical silver supposedly into the SLV ETF, and we hit about 21.5 thousand tons or whatever it was, and that is when SLV publicly said that they were about to run out of silver and it was a big problem. And then somebody had to tamp down. You can ask Chris about that. He goes on about the tamp down fiasco a lot for good reason. What I want to make clear about silver for 2022 is that we could easily have a situation where there will be demand for delivery of silver against contracts from the Comex, while at the same time there will be demand for silver to be shuttled into SLV from JPMorgan at the same time. And what happened in July 2020 when JPMorgan saved the silver market, or really the dollar market, or saved silver from exploding and the Comex from defaulting by shuttling in about 40 million ounces from their storage pile, from their eligible category into registered, they might not have the silver to do that again. So the next time there is a silver surge and the silverbacks are able to get silver above $30 an ounce, you could have a blow up in SLV, a premium develop because they can't shuttle any more silver to issue any more shares. And then you have a scarcity of shares, a premium in SLV, which pulls the price of futures higher, which itself pulls the price of SLV higher. And then you have a dog chasing its tail in the silver market. And that could blow things up. Is it going to happen in 2022? I certainly hope so, because by the chart of the SLV ETF, it seems obvious that this is the only thing that can happen because the stock of physical silver in SLV never goes down, and it cannot keep going up without blowing up eventually. So how many more rounds of silver buying do the silverbacks have to execute in order to blow this up? I don't know, but just keep doing it. Just keep going. You've gotten 70 million ounces off the books since February. If we just keep going, we can squeeze this. And I'm not just talking about silver. You're not really squeezing silver when you're squeezing silver. You're squeezing the dollar. And when you squeeze the dollar, you can bring an end to the entire fiat corrupted monetary system and bring back honest weights and measures to the world, which is what everyone desperately needs, whether they realize it or not, because this world, man, is nuts. And we need to bring it back to a hard reality where things make sense. Happy 2022, guys. Happy stacking. Keep at it. You're doing the right thing, and we will succeed. This is Rafi, Endgame Investor, signing off for Arcadia Economics. And have a good week.
Well, thank you, Rafi. As always, great to hear your forecast and what you see happening in 2022, what to look out for. Before we wrap up today, this video was brought to you by Reyna Silver, one of the silver companies we follow here on the show. And they are actually having a live call with Jorge Ramiro Monroy, who've seen several times on the show, and Dr. Peter Megaw, as well as Michael Wood, the CEO of Reyna Gold. So the link to that is in the description field below. You can click there to register and sign up if you're interested in getting more information on that. With that said, thanks as always for watching, and I'll see you again tomorrow.